I'm so excited about the next More Faith, More Life podcast. I'm going to take you through the prayer revival, the Emmy Award winning Stephen Catley show, and then the Kansas City revival seen in 200 nations. You don't want to miss it.
You were made for more than the status quo. I'm Pastor Steve Gray, and this is the More Faith, More Life podcast. This podcast is for Christians with an ambitious heart who want to be more for their family, do more with their career, and see more of God's promises in their life. I've spent many years as a worship artist, minister, nonprofit leader, bold truth speaker, and most importantly, father and spouse. When I was in my early 40s, I was craving more from God and more from life. I'd done everything I was supposed to do. My life was good, but it wasn't good enough. So I spent the following years diving into the Word of God and searching for the biblical principles that would bring me closer to God and help my purpose and life flourish. That's what I want to share with you. In every episode, you'll get practical tools based on real-life experiences that you can put into action to redefine your faith and ultimately your life. So, if you're ready to do more, subscribe to More Faith, More Life, and hear an unfiltered biblical truth every week. It's time to be and experience more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another More Faith, More Life podcast. I'm going to host you today solo. I'm Steve Gray hosting solo. Kathy's got other things that she had to do, and I used to do it solo anyway, and then when I figured out it's a whole lot better when she's here, we can talk things over and laugh at stuff and, enjoy being together. So we'll get back to that later, but today it's just me. And so I had to pick it up where we left off because she's been asking me questions. She's working on a book. Actually, we're working on two new books at the same time. And one of them hopefully will be done before too long in October. We'll see what we're going to do with it. But anyway, she's busy doing that, and so I had to figure out how do I do it, because normally she was going to ask me some questions today because she's working on a book about a legacy, and I think everybody leaves a legacy. Some of them are not so good, some of them are pretty boring, and she wanted to do one on me, and I at first was like, I don't know, that kind of, isn't it kind of arrogant or something, like we better publish my legacy? But looking back over, I'm getting a lot of response from this podcast and people saying they enjoy it so much because stories are very important. And if you have good stories and some amazing ones, like I'm not even bringing up a lot of the amazing stories. I'm basically just talking about the events, the big events that took place that got us where we are. And so I'm going to pick it up where we left off with my life. A long time ago, a funny guy was going to tell about his life, and he started off saying, well, tell us about your life. And he said, well, I started out as a child. And so I'm not going to go way back then, even though we had an interesting story to tell in our yard here. Our yard grew this fungus things that some people think they're mushrooms. They kind of look like, but they're not. It's a fungus. They're very poisonous. And I started out as a child. When I was 2 years old, I actually ate some. I was in the yard sitting. You know how kids just put stuff in their mouth constantly. And I just picked it up and ate it. Fortunately, my oldest sister, Diana, saw me, and they picked me up and rushed me to the hospital, and I had poisoned myself with it. And they had to pump my stomach. But they only gave me, I don't know, I have to ask her, but it was like minutes to live or whatever they thought I was going to go, I guess, however they tell that with a 2-year-old. But that was my first brush with death. It wouldn't be my last, but it was my first. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to go back to where we left off. And we left off before the Smithton Outpouring, which we talked about, was an amazing historical thing. You can find it in books and online, of a town of 532 people visited by over 250,000 people came through the doors in 3.5 years in a town of that small town. Amazing time. It's hard to describe what it was like, because today you can experience good church, and even some churches that will even say they're in revival. Usually they're short, few days meetings, but that's okay. But this was every day, or five services a week, sometimes 6 services a week, and every day people came from all over the world. So people don't come from all over the world if there's not something here otherworldly. If it's just a regular good service that they can have back home, that's a waste of their time. It was It was out of this world. It was something not of this world had come down in that area, in that town, and in that church, and in those people. And so then we outgrew it, and there's lots of reasons why we left that little town, but we had to go, and we moved to Kansas City, an hour and a half away. And we started a church here, and I talked about how we had to get buildings and didn't have a place to go, and we finally bought property, and we started it having services on our property on a tent, and then we moved into the building. And that's other podcasts, you can catch that later. So that brought us up then as we ended, I think, that 9/11 happened in New York. You know what 9/11, the terrorist attack on the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon and that other plane that was in the air. Okay, so that all happened, and when that happened, then airports shut down, people stopped traveling, terrorism was now in the news, it was all the news, and we had, it changed America, and it changed the laws, it changed, the war on terror, and all those kinds of things. It caused a war overseas, in Iraq and the Iraqi war, and so it was big. Well, it changed the world. And so people weren't traveling, they weren't leaving home, they didn't know if they wanted to get on an airplane. So that kind of shut down the world coming, because when we came to Kansas City, people from all over the world still came. Even though we were in a tent and then we started moving into our building, people still came from all over the world until 2001, because we opened the church just a little bit in the summer of 2000, and then into the fall of 2001 and up to Christmas, we were in our building, and then January, we kept going until September of 2001, 9/11. Then that happened. So everything shut down. All right, so now what are we going to do? Well, one thing, we held on to the remnant of revival. You can still feel it today. You'll feel it when you come in. You'll feel a sense of the presence of God that is usually, depending on where you go to church, but usually it's a couple of notches higher than you're used to, if I could say that. Okay? The worship and the praise and the attitude, and you can see the people all worshiping. Children are not coloring books and toys. They're worshiping. A lot of them come up front and worship with the adults, little kids there, and they just spend the whole time, our whole worship service. And we don't do just 20 minutes, And the whole worship service, they got their hands up and they're worshiping, they bow down. It's a beautiful sight to see. And so we kept on to that remnant in the services. But what do we do with ourselves the rest? Well, we built buildings. We built the building we're in, of course, the main sanctuary building, big building. And then I went to Australia. And while there, I did a lot of meetings. I went to Australia a lot those years. And I had one particular meeting. I got frustrated because I felt like, they responded, but they're still, especially those in the ministry that were there, ministers, kind of had a need of nothing. Like, I don't really need this. And I just came back to the hotel and prayed about it. Said, God, it's kind of frustrating preaching to people that, have need of nothing attitude. And I heard the Lord speak. I don't think it was audible as some other times that I've described in the Legacy series, but it was a knowing, and this is what I felt I heard. Well, if you're frustrated with people who have need of nothing, why don't you do something for people who need everything? Not bad, huh? That's a pretty good word. Yeah. So I came back and we decided to build a place called the House of Hope and Healing. We call it HHH, House of Hope and Healing. And we built it. It's a huge building, house. A lot of people think I live there, but it's a really big house. And we built it. We used timber we brought in from Vermont, and there's no nails in it at all. It's all done with pegs like they used to do. It's beautiful. It's got a 30-foot fireplace. And we did it through those years. When we built that, I can't remember exactly what year we built it, right in the early parts of the 2000s. And we opened it up to 24-hour prayer, and people were in there praying all the time, and you could come anytime. And it was mainly meant for people who got a physical diagnosis, a sickness or disease, to go when they didn't have a place in their own church. Maybe their own church didn't believe in healing, didn't know how to pray for the sick, never heard of any miracles. And so it was a miracle house where you could come and get hope again and healing. And the first thing I did when I did the hope part is I taught the people that minister there, let's get rid of the guilt. that they feel like, why am I sick? What did I do wrong? It was there sin in me, secret sin. I don't know people have personal secret sin. I think sin's not a secret to us. But anyway, they think that. Maybe I sinned and didn't know I sinned. Maybe my grandma. Maybe it's in my lineage. Maybe my ancestors. And so something must have made me sick. And so we rob them of that and say, no, no, no. Sickness is part of the fall of mankind. It's in the world. Jesus said, if you eat of that tree to Adam, you will die, right? And so we have things in the earth that follow the word of God, that there's going to be things in the earth that cause people to die. And if you don't die of that, you'll die of something someday. Everybody will, unless Jesus returns when there's, and of course there'll be people alive when he comes back. And they will be transformed. They won't die. But the dead in Christ, and the graves will open, and we'll have the resurrection of the dead. So we opened it for that reason, and we got rid of that guilt. Stop thinking you're not going to be able to. It's really tough to get people free of whatever they need to be free of if they believe it's their fault and they deserve it. So I had to get rid of that and say, no, no, no. Okay, so there's a long teaching on that, no time for it, but that's where we went. And thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people through the years have come through the House of Hope and Healing. Well, that was part of it. And then we also built that first. What we needed to build was education wing, gymnasium, for the church and our, let's just call it Sunday school classes and classes that we have. But we needed that first. But instead, I felt like the Lord says, no, wait on that, and I will miraculously build that for you. You won't have to go to a bank. You won't have to do it. It'll get done. You'll always have enough to do it. And so we built the House of Hope and Healing first and took a lot of money. We furnished it well. It's beautiful. I told him, I said, I want it to, if you come out of a doctor's office and you've been sitting on a table with paper on it, I wanted you to come into a soft, beautiful, beautiful home where you can get healed and restored and get your hope back and your healing. Okay, and your health. And so we built that first and took our money, because it was expensive. But then God came through, and we did. He did come through, and we built without too much effort. Just built little by little the education wing and a gymnasium, which is there. So we have these three big buildings on 63 acres. We bought 62, and then there was one over there on the corner, and we bought it too. So we have 63 acres. We're still deciding what to do with some of that acreage. We have a beautiful pond, and so now we're in our church and rolling along, and we decided now we'll try everything. So during the revival days, you didn't have to have programs because all you did was have revival. If you're going to have, because when we came to Kansas City, we have 4 services a week, and 2, and kept going. And if I remember right, maybe we still had 5, maybe when we were in the tent. I can't remember, but anyway. You didn't have to, that's all you could do. You just had revival, and people came from all over, and, new ministries struck up, like people handing out water for people who stood in line all day just to get in. And so we went through that and started then, okay, now what do? We got to start operating. So we tried everything, to see what's our niche now in Kansas City. And we did some home groups and home fellowships, and people ate at home and had dinners, and we would play volleyball and just do stuff to fill it. It wasn't the same, of course, and a lot of people, we'd have a home group that wanted to get together and do something like, I don't know, paint or something, and our people wouldn't show up much. We said, what's wrong? Why does this church got these home groups and all these people show up and they eat and they paint and they share and they do stuff? And we have a home group and we're having trouble getting people to go. It's because they were so engulfed in the presence of God, so spoiled by it, that they just wanted to get together and talk about Jesus. So it didn't work as well for us as some other churches, but nevertheless, we still did it, and we still do it today. And so we learned to be a church. We got all our pastors in order. We got everything working well, and all the equipment we needed to buy, and sound systems and carpet and all that stuff. We got all that done over those years, and kept going. Well, then we had a unique experience where a person which you may have heard of, I haven't kept track of her, but her name was Juanita Bynum. And I didn't really know Juanita Bynum at all. In fact, I'm not even sure how she ended up in our church. But something happened. Somebody, and I guess she heard about the revival that's earlier and wanted to come to our church. And so she did. And I can't remember if she came one service or two, maybe for a Sunday or a weekend. I don't remember. But at the end of the very last service, whatever time it was, she just stopped the service, and I'm sitting on the front row, and she said, you know what? God's telling me, and wanted to know if it was okay with me, God's telling me that we should start having prayer meetings on this property at 5 a.m. I think it was every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. And she didn't live here, so she lived in Atlanta. And she said it. She asked me, "Is that all right with you?" And I just nodded. No, of course it is. Let's go for it. I didn't even have to think about it. And I know I have the mind of Christ. I thought that's wonderful. So we planned it. I don't remember when, but I think in May or whatever month it was. And so we showed up at 5 a.m. We had to fly her in from Atlanta every week, and those prayer meetings went on at 5 a.m. for about 4 months, I think. Every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Now, what do you think? What's going to happen next? Well, I didn't know it, but the first Tuesday then, I guess we announced it that we were doing it. The first Tuesday, I show up a little bit before 5 a.m. because she's flying in, and I want to meet her and get everything, 4:30 in the morning, whatever it was, like that. Well, I show up at the church early, and there is a line clear out to the street. Some people brought lawn chairs, and they said, yeah, people start showing up at midnight to get in, and they'd sit in their lawn chairs. I had no idea that was going to happen, and we had so many people, we got nervous that we might be shut down because we would have 1,800 people show up for prayer at 5 a.m. every Tuesday morning. I mean, that changed our world, changed your schedule. Kids went and came, and then everybody went to work, and they lasted from 5 to 7, I think, 7:30, and we would come and pray and have that, and she would lead the services. And so that was a unique thing, and it really connected us with other churches and other communities. Some people started coming to our church. Others just appreciated what we did and the cost of it because we paid for all of it, and did everything like that. I don't think we did offerings. I don't remember doing offerings. We just paid, and we paid for a flight. We paid for a hotel. And that went on for about 4 months. And that was a unique historical. And every Tuesday morning, there they were, lined up down as far as you could see to get in. Excuse me. So that was a legacy part of it. And then we stopped that, and we just continued to pray and seek the Lord. Well, as it got to now, we're heading towards now we're heading towards the middle of the 2000s. And God began to press on me that Kathy and I needed to do a TV show, a different kind of show. It was sort of like a late night show, like Tonight Show type thing, and yet it would be geared toward Christians, and it would have humor in it. We would actually do satires and funny skits, and a little bit like Saturday Night Live and the Tonight Show put together. And sometimes we'd have guests, and we had a band, and it was a great band, and people would come and be on the show. And so then it got syndicated so that it was being aired in big cities late night, like whatever it is in Chicago. I forgot what it is. But anyway, the big station in Chicago and all the super stations late at night. And we would run it on Sunday night at the same time that Saturday Night Live, like at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, would run on Saturday night, or the Tonight Show would run Monday through Friday. We ran it on Sunday night, syndicated around the country, and some parts of the world picked it up, and Christian networks picked it up, some of them. And so we ran that, and so all of a sudden, it's a new face of us where people began to realize that, I wrote songs, I sang, Kathy, we did it, we had guests, and I wrote funny things, just like you might see on The Tonight Show, funny skits, the top 10 answers to this, satire like Saturday Night Live, and out of it then, I won as a writer, I won 3 Emmys. I got 3 Emmys somewhere upstairs. I don't know why I don't have a bookshelf back here with all my awards on it, but anyway, 3 Emmys and about over 40, what they call Telly Awards. And Telly Awards is television awards for writing. It's just a different kind of award. And I got, over the years, I have about 40 of those. Some of them are silver and some of them are gold. So I think there's 2 classes, And so I got those. Well, that show was still being aired when in 2008, I was starting to feel that our worship was getting stagnant. And that's okay. It happens, doesn't it? You leaders and pastors know. You get it and you got to realize, what do we do now? And it started getting stagnant. And I didn't know what to do. And I tried coaching the worship team and the worship leaders and and it was okay because, they're leading and I try to coach. So let's try this and we try that, try this. And then one Friday night service, at this time, by the way, we didn't have Saturday church anymore. We had it, I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the revival days. And then now we're doing regular church and we got our Saturday night back and we sort of made it a fellowship night, like I told you before. And so one Friday night, I just felt like the Lord said, just get up and talk to yourself. You keep telling them to explain it, them to teach it. Get up and teach it yourself. So I did. I just took the microphone and I began to worship, sing it along with the band and sing, worship, exhort, explain, pray over them, had them sing, let's do this, let's do that. And suddenly something happened that night that we weren't sure what it was. And so we didn't have Saturday, so we came back Sunday and we realized something's different after that night. That was in May of 2008, I think. Something's different. And so we went that Sunday, and then we came back the next, and we did we had Thursday church, but now we have Wednesday. We had Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And we did it again the next week, and something was different. And I started noticing one of a dear friend that went to our church came up, and he said, Pastor Steve, something is different. Something has happened. And I began to think, I think you're right. So it was a week or two into it. We just kept doing it and getting better and better and more presence of God. And it grew stronger and stronger. And then finally one night we had prayer time, and the Lord impressed me that the children should pray. I know that's cute. You think, oh, how cute. It wasn't cute. It was powerful. And one particular boy just got some kind of anointing on him, and he went around and prayed healing. He was only this tall. He went around and prayed healing for people, and some people were healed. That changed things. And so for a little bit there, I started lining up at the end of the services. Some of them, I would bring up chairs and have the children stand on chairs so they could pray for adults. And the adults would line up to come up to each kid, maybe 10 or 15 kids. And that started a different thing. And then it just exploded with all kinds of manifestations where people were being set free and delivered and on fire during praise and worship. And I can't even explain it. It was like Smithton in a way, but it was in a new location. And there was similar but different, but it was powerful. Well, we had cameras then. Now started having video. And so we videoed the kid praying. We videoed people's testimonies, them getting up and pouring out their hearts. And so we didn't know what to do with those videos because they were so powerful, and we wanted to tell people, look, things are happening here. And so we made about a 3-minute video, fast pace, where you could come, the music's playing, you see worship, you see the people worshiping, and this kid praying and these children praying. We had a drum line that we did, like 10 military drums that sometimes would play during prayer. It was really unique because it was warfare. It was really fun and spiritual. And then we showed people coming up, lining up, and giving their testimony, just real quick testimonies. Bang, bang, bang. So in 3 minutes, you might get 7, 8, 9, 10 testimonies. You'd see the kids praying. You'd hear it. And so they made this 3-minute video, and we posted it, Well, I had a friend at Daystar Network came up, and he joined in and enjoyed it, and he heard about it, and I think he preached, but he saw it and felt it, and that was in about September probably of 2008 or something like that. And he was so impressed by it that he went back to Daystar, and he took that. It must have been October or something. I don't forget the date. But anyway, I was going to be a guest on Daystar anyway. He came, and soon after that, I was going to be a guest on the show with my book, My Absurd Religion, by which I make my living. If you don't have that book, you can get it on SteveGrayMinistries.com. My Absurd Religion. Okay, so they wanted to interview me with the book. So I go down there. In the meantime, my friend took that 3-minute video with him, okay? And all he did is he wanted to show it to their prayer department. They got their own prayer department. They take prayer requests, and they have people on computers, lots of computers, And so he wanted to show it. So the day I arrived was to be on the show. He went down and he aired that just in the prayer department, all the prayer people downstairs or wherever it was. I don't know where it was. And they watched it. And he talked about how moving it was and how it affected them. Well, word spread through the departments and stuff that there was this little 3-minute video from this church that you needed to see. Okay, so that's that. So then I'm a guest on the show. I talk about the book. I think there was probably another guest, and they did music. You know how it goes. And at the end, though, if I remember it right, I think I remember it right, they showed a commercial-like thing, and somebody came up and started talking to Marcus Lamb, and something like, hey, we've got a few minutes left. Why don't we show that video that they showed downstairs, or I don't know if it's downstairs, wherever it was. Why don't we show that video they showed? And I hadn't seen it for a while, and so I couldn't remember too much about it. So next thing I know, I'm sitting there, and they say, oh, I hear there's something going on in your church. We have a video we want to show. So they showed it on Daystar, that short video, and when it ended, Marcus Lamb said to me, we want to capture that live. On Friday nights, we want to have a live service. And I'd never done a live church thing before. We want to send a truck to your church with big satellite dish, big. We're going to send that truck there, and every Friday night, we're going to give you 90 minutes, and we're going to pay for everything. 90 minutes live in 200 nations around the world. We want to capture what's going on in your church. So they set it for December. That was I think October. First Friday in December. I think December was kind of a slow month on Christian TV or something, and it would be a good filler. So we'd still have services Thursday, Friday, and we added Saturday. I forgot to say that. Now we're going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday again. All the time. People are still starting to come pretty well, but, once you hit this point. So they showed that video in 200 nations, and it just rocked people all over the world. And so we went Friday night, Friday night, Friday night, Friday night, and there's Christmas. And I didn't know what. They didn't say anything, and the next thing, they said, we want to continue for a few more Fridays, or at least this Friday. So we went Friday night, Friday night, Friday. So we're going all Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but then we're doing every Friday night at 7:30, I think, to 9, live. Point, go, that's it. And so we did our worship, we did our thing, I did the preaching, every single one of them. And pretty soon it got longer and longer, and we ended up being on Daystar Live, 90 minutes for 3 years. During that time, there you go again. Yeah, you can just imagine. I have pictures and videos. People started lining up in the afternoon to make sure they got in the building because it was so packed. We were told by the city we could, I think, have 1,200 in there at the time. We've added a couple of side offices and buildings and stuff, so it might be a little less now, but then it was 1,200, and we would pack out 1,200 people every week, and they'd come and line up. And then there were people all over the world watching, and they watched every week, and then they started coming. They'd say, I saw it on TV, and I'm here now, and they'd fly in and drive in and everything. It was another out of this world. It was, people would just come on the parking lot, and you could feel the presence of God in a unique and greater way. Doesn't mean other churches don't have the presence, or they don't have anything good or anything like that. This just was a step up. And to go 4 services a week and go live and call it revival in Kansas City for that many years, it had to really be God, and you had to really be walking with God. And it was a fantastic time when we got to, again, I forgot to say before, with the Smithton Outpouring, Kathy and I got to travel the world. I started from Obscurity to national to international, and Time Magazine came, and Newsweek came, and other thing, and now they're coming again in 2008, 9, and 10. The only thing I have left to say, I went a little longer today, sort of, but thing I left to say, all of a sudden now I have a collision, okay? On some Christian stations, they're airing the Steve and Kathy show. On syndicated stations, they're airing the Steve and Kathy show, which is humorous, satire, even making fun of ourselves, because we are funny people, Church can be funny. And it was going really well, and I won all these awards and all that. And at the same time, now here's the same guy on Friday night teaching revival, preaching hard sermons, really teaching, because I got up and I thought, I'm going to preach what needs to be said because I'm only got 4 weeks. I started 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, I'm going to be done because I'm not a TV preacher quality that what they're used to. I'm going to be different. So that's all they'll give me, all they want. And instead it went for 3 years. So I'm giving it out there. So it was causing a collision of confusion. Is he a humorist? Is he a Saturday Night Live Tonight Show host? Or is he a revival preacher? So I had to make the decision, and the audience and the revival was growing and growing, and people were so hungry for God. I said, I got to make a decision. So I took the Steve and Kathy show off the air, and we even took the shows off the internet eventually. So you couldn't see the skits, you couldn't see the funny stuff, because it was just causing people just want you to be one thing, right? They want to, especially our Greek culture that we have here in our minds, we want to put you in one pigeonhole. That's who you are. You can't be this and that. You're just that. And I'm more than that. I write songs and sing and do all this kind of stuff. And sometimes I can be funny. But I had to do it, so I did it. So that was the end of that era of the Steve and Kathy show, and it hasn't returned. I don't know how many years we were on. We did several years of shows. We were on the air several years around syndicated. And then now we're several years on TV again, only it's another kind of TV. Well, that leads us up then to 2011. And at 2011, we made a deal with Daystar, and both of us, Marcus Lamb and myself, decided it's time to stop the revival programming because they need to get back to their business. They've spent a lot of money, and they need to get back to what they're called to do. We needed to get back to being a local church, so we agreed. And another reason when I went off, I said, I've been doing this now about 3 years. And I said, if I keep doing this show, this revival TV stuff, it's almost like I'm begging people. You've heard it, you need to believe it, you need to respond to it, that's it, we're done. I didn't want to now be just pleading with people to be revived or whatever, or let the power of God in your church. So we agreed together, and it was the right decision for the times. And that leads us up then to 2011. What happened after that? I'll have to tell you the story of how that happened and how that revival took us into other areas. So that's the end of that. We went through 2 revivals. We went through Juanita Bynum prayer service, through Steve and Kathy show, Emmys, Telly Awards, and then in 200 nations, people came from all over the world, lined up to get in, and were aired live. Revival in Kansas City. That's a legacy, and that's what we wanted to, and remember, I'm not that many years before Obscurity, to all known all around the world, written books and done everything. And I just want to encourage you to not give up on your legacy, whatever it is, and push yourself forward. Run the race. Don't hop, skip, run the race that's set before you, so that at the end you can say like Paul did, I finished my race. I finished the course. All right. That's the legacy lesson. Maybe next week we'll have Kathy with us again, and she can see what's next. All right. Till next time. Bye-bye.